I woke up at 6 a.m. on the morning of my daughter Claire's engagement party, and somehow I already knew something was wrong. Maybe it was the way the early morning light filtered through the curtains in my bedroom, or maybe it was just a mother's intuition that had been screaming at me for weeks. I'd been living with Claire and her 10-year-old son Tyler for 3 years now, ever since my husband passed. This house, the one my late husband and I had bought 40 years ago, had become a sanctuary for all three of us after Claire's divorce. Today was supposed to be perfect. Claire had finally found happiness again with Brad, a charming real estate developer she'd met at a charity event 2 years ago. He seemed perfect on paper, successful, handsome, great with Tyler. My sister Susan adored him too, which should have been reassuring. Susan had been my rock since Robert died, helping with everything from home repairs to watching Tyler when Claire worked late. But something had been off lately. Little things, the way Brad's eyes would linger on Susan during family dinners, how Susan would blush and look away, how they'd both volunteer to run errands together, how Brad had been too busy with work to see Claire some weekends, yet I'd seen his car parked on Susan's street when I drove by to drop off some books. I pushed those thoughts away as I got dressed. Today wasn't about my paranoid suspicions. Today was about Claire's happiness. 75 guests were coming to our backyard at 2 p.m. The caterers would arrive at noon. Susan had insisted on handling the floral arrangements personally. I walked downstairs and found the house quiet. Claire had stayed at her best friend Amanda's place last night for some pre-party pampering. Tyler was at his dad's for the weekend. I was alone with my thoughts, and that's when I noticed Brad's jacket draped over the dining room chair. That was odd. He hadn't been here yesterday, at least not when I was home. I picked up the jacket, intending to hang it in the closet, and something fell from the pocket. A phone. Not Brad's iPhone with the distinctive blue case Claire had bought him. This was a cheap burner phone, the kind people use when they don't want to be traced. My hands trembled as I pressed the power button. It wasn't password protected. The screen lit up, and my world tilted on its axis. Text after text. Photos. Videos. All between Brad and my sister Susan. "Can't wait to feel your hands on me again, Susan. Last night was incredible. How do we keep doing this under her nose, Brad? She's so trusting. She'll never suspect her own sister. Susan. Just a few more months and the house will be ours. Once you're married to Claire, we can convince Margaret to sign it over for estate planning like we discussed, Brad." I sank into the dining room chair, my 66-year-old heart pounding so hard I thought it might give out. This couldn't be real. Not Susan. Not my baby sister who I'd raised after our mother died when she was 12. Not the sister who'd held my hand at Robert's funeral. Not with Brad, the man my daughter was going to marry in 4 months. But there was more. I kept scrolling, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Pictures of them together. In bed. In what looked like a hotel room. In Susan's house. And then, photos that made my blood run cold. A teenage girl, maybe 15 or 16, with Brad's distinctive hazel eyes and Susan's auburn hair. Kaylee asked about her dad again. I told her the same story. "When are you going to acknowledge her, Susan?" Dated 3 months ago. "Not until after I'm married. We've been over this. Once I have access to the property and Margaret's assets, we can come clean. I'll divorce Claire, marry you properly, and we'll have everything we need for Kaylee's future. Brad." I read that message 3 times before it fully registered. They had a daughter, a teenage daughter, which meant this affair had been going on for at least 16 years. 16 years of lies. But Brad had only known Claire for 2 years, which meant he'd sought her out deliberately. This was planned. All of it. My sister and my daughter's fiancé had been having an affair since before Brad even met Claire. They had a child together. And now they were using my daughter to steal my home, the only thing of value Robert had left me. I don't remember how long I sat there. The sun climbed higher. My phone rang twice. I didn't answer. I just stared at the evidence of a betrayal so deep, so calculated, that I couldn't process it. Then I heard the front door open. "Mom? I came back early to help you set up." Claire's voice, bright and happy, floated through the house. I shoved the phone into my cardigan pocket and stood up, my legs unsteady. Claire appeared in the doorway, radiant in a cream-colored sundress, her honey blonde hair loose around her shoulders. She looked so happy, so in love, so completely unaware that her entire future was a lie. "Hey, you okay? You look pale." She crossed to me, concern furrowing her brow. "Just tired, sweetheart. Didn't sleep well." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. "Well, go rest for a bit. I'll start setting up the tables outside." She kissed my cheek and breezed past me. I couldn't tell her. Not now. Not like this. She'd been through so much with her divorce from Tyler's father. She'd been so broken, so hurt. Brad had seemed like her second chance at happiness. If I told her now, without proof, without a plan, it would destroy her. And knowing my daughter's fierce loyalty, she might not even believe me. Not about her beloved fiancé and her aunt who'd been like a second mother to her. I needed more than a burner phone with text messages. I needed irrefutable proof. I needed a strategy. I went upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called a private investigator. His name was James Torres, and he came highly recommended by a friend whose husband had cheated. I explained everything in a whisper, sent him photos of the text messages, and gave him all the information I had about Brad and Susan. "Mrs. Henderson," he said, his voice calm and professional, "I understand this is devastating, but you're doing the right thing by gathering evidence. Give me 2 weeks. If there's more to find, I'll find it." 2 weeks. The party was in 8 hours. I had to get through today pretending everything was fine. The morning blurred past. The caterers arrived. Susan showed up at 11 a.m. with armfuls of flowers, kissing my cheek and complimenting my dress. I smiled and hugged her back, fighting the urge to slap her. How could she look me in the eye after what she'd done? After what she was planning to do? Brad arrived at 1 p.m., looking handsome in khakis and a crisp white shirt. He wrapped Claire in his arms, kissing her deeply, and I had to look away. He caught my eye over Claire's shoulder and winked at me. The same friendly wink he'd given me 100 times before. But now I saw it for what it was: mockery. The party started at 2 p.m. Guests filled our backyard. Friends from Claire's school, Brad's business associates, family members. Everyone laughing, eating, celebrating the happy couple. Susan stood by the bar, holding court with some of Claire's friends, telling stories about Claire as a little girl, playing the devoted aunt. I moved through the crowd like a ghost, accepting congratulations, making small talk, while my mind raced. I had the burner phone hidden in my bedroom. I had screenshots saved to my own phone. But I couldn't expose them here, not now, not without knowing the full extent of their deception. Tyler ran up to me, his face sticky with cake. "Grandma, can I have another piece?" "Of course, sweet boy." I hugged him tight, breathing in his little boy scent of grass and sugar. What would this do to him? He adored Brad. He'd started calling him almost Dad. "Everything okay, Mom?" Claire appeared at my elbow, her hand intertwined with Brad's. "Perfect, honey. Everything's perfect." Another lie. Brad squeezed Claire's hand. "Your mother's been amazing, helping put all this together. I'm so lucky to be joining this family." The audacity. The absolute gall of this man to stand there, lying to my daughter's face, planning to use her, to rob us both, while sleeping with my sister and raising a secret daughter. "We're the lucky ones," Susan said, joining our little circle. She put her arm around my shoulders. "Margaret has always been the heart of this family, right, sis?" I looked at her then, really looked at her. At 58, Susan was still beautiful, with her auburn hair and green eyes. She'd been widowed young, at 32, when her husband died in a car accident. I'd been there for her through the grief, the financial struggles, everything. I'd helped her raise her son, Marcus, who was now 30. I'd loaned her money when she was about to lose her house. I'd given her everything a sister could give. And this was how she repaid me. Yes, I managed. Family is everything. The party wound down around 6 p.m. Guests departed with full bellies and warm wishes. Claire and Tyler went to drive some elderly relatives home. Brad volunteered to help clean up. So did Susan. I found myself alone in the kitchen with the two of them, loading the dishwasher, while my entire reality crumbled around me. "Margaret, you've outdone yourself," Brad said, handing me plates. "This house is going to be such an amazing place for our blended family." Claire mentioned you've been thinking about estate planning. There it was. The opening move. My hands froze on the plate. Actually, Brad brought up a good point the other day, Susan interjected smoothly. You should really think about setting up a trust, maybe putting the house in Claire's name now to avoid estate taxes later. Brad knows an excellent lawyer who could help. I bet he did. A lawyer who'd make sure the paperwork benefited Brad, not Claire. I'll think about it, I said quietly. They exchanged a glance. A quick, knowing look that confirmed everything I'd read in those text messages. Don't wait too long, Susan pressed. At your age, you never know. At my age. My baby sister was implying I might die soon, making it easier for them to steal my home. I'm 66, Susan, not 90. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Of course. I just mean, it's smart to plan ahead. She backpedaled, but her eyes were calculating. Brad's phone rang, his real phone. He answered it, then frowned. I have to take this. Work emergency. He stepped outside. Susan watched him go, and when she turned back to me, her expression had shifted. There was something predatory in her eyes. You know, Margaret, you've had a good run. This house, your life with Robert. But Claire deserves her turn now. And Brad can give her everything. A real partnership. Financial security. Maybe it's time for you to step back, let the younger generation take over. Before I could respond, Claire's car pulled into the driveway. Susan's face immediately shifted back to her pleasant aunt mask. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the burner phone on my nightstand like a ticking bomb. I wanted to march into Claire's room and tell her everything. I wanted to call Susan and scream at her. I wanted to punch Brad in his smug, lying face. But I didn't, because I needed to be smart. I needed James Torres to finish his investigation. I needed to protect Claire and Tyler. I needed to make sure that when I exposed these two, they couldn't wiggle out of it. The next morning, Claire was already up, making breakfast, humming to herself. She looked so happy. It broke my heart. Mom, I need to talk to you about something, she said, sliding a plate of eggs in front of me. My stomach dropped. Did she know? Brad and I were thinking, maybe we could buy out your share of the house after we get married. That way you could use the money for whatever you want. Travel, maybe? You've always wanted to see Europe. There it was, the second move. They were going to push me out of my own home. Claire, this is my house. Your father and I bought it. I know, Mom, and I'm not trying to be insensitive. But Brad pointed out that maintaining this big place at your age might be difficult. And his income combined with mine means we could afford to buy you a nice condo somewhere. Something manageable. Susan even said you could stay with her while we look for the right place for you. I bet Susan did. Get me out of the house so they could have free reign. I'll think about it, I said, the same thing I'd told them last night. Claire's smile faltered. You don't seem excited about any of this. About the wedding, about Brad, about our future. Is something wrong? Everything was wrong, everything. But I couldn't say that. Just processing a lot of changes, sweetheart. I'm happy for you, I promise. She studied me for a moment, then kissed the top of my head. I love you, Mom, and I know it's been just us for so long, but Brad's a good man. You'll see. After she left for work, I called James Torres. I've got something, he said without preamble. Can you meet me this afternoon? We met at a coffee shop across town. James Torres was a compact man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He slid a manila folder across the table to me. It's worse than you thought, he said. I opened the folder. Inside were photographs, bank statements, property records, and a birth certificate. Kaylee Patricia Morrison, born August 14th, 16 years ago. Father, Bradley James Morrison. Mother, Susan Patricia Henderson. They've been together for 17 years, James explained. Brad approached Claire deliberately 2 years ago after researching her background. He knew about your property value, your financial situation, everything. Susan fed him information. But why? My voice cracked. Why would my sister do this to me? To Claire? James pulled out more documents. Susan's been in serious debt for years. Gambling. She owes over $200,000 to some very dangerous people. Brad promised to pay it off in exchange for helping him get access to your assets. They planned to marry Claire off, get the house in his name through various legal manipulations, then force you out. Once they had full control, they'd sell it, split the profits, pay off Susan's debts, and disappear together. Claire would be left with nothing. I felt sick, physically sick. My sister had sold out her niece and her own sister to pay off gambling debts. There's more. James showed me photos of Brad with other women, not just Susan. He's a con artist. This isn't his first time. He's done this before, in 3 other states. Different names, same game. Find a divorced woman with assets or a wealthy family, romance her, steal everything, disappear. Susan isn't even his first accomplice. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. "What do I do?" I whispered. "That's up to you, Mrs. Henderson. You have enough evidence here for criminal charges. Fraud. Intent to commit fraud. A good prosecutor would have a field day. Or you can confront them privately. But if I can give you some advice?" I nodded. "Expose them publicly. Make it so they can't lie their way out of it. Protect your daughter by showing her the truth in a way she can't deny. And make sure everyone who knows them understands exactly who they are." The wedding was in 3.5 months, but Susan was throwing a birthday party for herself next weekend. 59th birthday celebration at her house. The whole family would be there, Claire and Brad, Tyler, cousins, friends, everyone who knew us. "I need you to get me more," I told James. "DNA proof that Kaylee is Brad's daughter, copies of everything, video evidence if possible. I need this to be airtight." "You got it." The next week was torture. I had to pretend everything was normal. I had dinner with Susan, who chattered on about her party plans and how excited she was about Claire's wedding. I watched Claire try on wedding dresses, her face glowing with joy, knowing it was all built on lies. I helped Tyler with his homework and tucked him in at night, wondering how I was going to protect him from the fallout of what I was about to do. Brad came over for dinner twice, playing the devoted fiancé, discussing honeymoon plans with Claire while my skin crawled every time he touched her. James worked fast. He got DNA from Brad's coffee cup and from Kaylee herself by posing as a survey worker at her school. The results came back, 99.9% probability of paternity. He installed hidden cameras at Susan's house with her cleaning lady's help for a generous fee. He documented everything. 2 days before Susan's party, he handed me a flash drive with all the evidence compiled into an undeniable presentation. "Whatever you're planning to do," he said, "make sure you have people there who support you. This is going to get ugly." I called Amanda, Claire's best friend, and her husband Mike. I told them everything and showed them the evidence. Amanda cried. Mike went pale. But they agreed to be there, to help Claire through the aftermath. I called my lawyer and had him draw up papers removing Susan from my will and filing for a restraining order, ready to file Monday morning. The night before the party, I barely slept. Tomorrow, I would destroy my sister and my daughter's fiancé. Tomorrow, I would break Claire's heart to save her future. Tomorrow, everything would change. Susan's house was decorated festively when I arrived at 6 p.m. with Claire and Tyler. Balloons, streamers, a big banner that read, "Happy 59th Susan." Guests mingled in the backyard. Brad was already there, drink in hand, laughing with Susan's son Marcus. "Aunt Margaret," Marcus greeted me warmly. At 30, he was a kind young man who worked as a teacher. He had no idea what his mother had done, what she was capable of. He was about to find out. Dinner was served at 7 p.m., a beautiful spread. Susan had spared no expense, probably with money she'd already stolen or borrowed against her future theft of my house. At 8 p.m., after cake was served, Susan stood to give a little speech, thanking everyone for coming. I stood up too. My legs shook, but my voice was steady. "Before Susan continues, I have something I need to share with everyone." Claire looked at me, puzzled. Brad's eyes narrowed slightly. Susan's smile froze on her face. Amanda nodded at me from across the yard. Mike had his phone ready to call for help if things got violent. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the TV Susan had set up for a slideshow of family photos. Some of you may not know this, but Susan and I have been very close our whole lives. I raised her after our mother died. I've supported her financially, emotionally, through everything. And 3 years ago, When Claire was at her lowest after her divorce, Susan introduced her to Brad Morrison. Brad was standing now. "Margaret, what are you doing?" "What you should have done a long time ago," I said. "Telling the truth." I pressed play. The slideshow started. Text messages between Brad and Susan appeared on the screen. Graphic messages, photos of them together, bank statements showing Brad's financial manipulations. Property records showing his history of fraud in other states under different names. Claire gasped. Her face went white. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be real." But I wasn't done. The next slide showed Kaylee's birth certificate. Brad Morrison, father, Susan Henderson, mother. Date of birth, 16 years ago. "You have a daughter," I said to Brad, "with my sister. A 16-year-old daughter you've hidden while romancing my daughter and planning to steal our home." The backyard exploded. People shouting. Marcus looked at his mother in horror. Claire was crying, hands over her mouth. Tyler ran to me, burying his face in my side. Brad lunged toward the laptop, but Mike was faster, blocking him. "Don't even think about it," Mike growled. Susan's voice cut through the chaos. "You sanctimonious bitch. You've had everything. The perfect marriage, the house, respect. What was I supposed to do? I needed help. So you sold your niece?" My voice shook with rage. "You helped this con artist target my daughter? Your own flesh and blood?" "She would have been fine," Susan screamed. "She's young. She could have started over. But I'm drowning in debt, and you wouldn't help me. You never asked. You just decided to steal from me instead." Brad made another move toward the door, but several men blocked his path. He looked around wildly, seeing his escape routes closing. Claire stood suddenly, her face streaked with tears. She walked up to Brad and slapped him. Hard. The crack echoed across the yard. "You told me you loved me," she said, her voice breaking. "You met Tyler. You talked about being his dad. You proposed to me in front of my mother's roses. And it was all a lie?" Brad's face twisted. "Claire, I can explain." "Explain what? That you have a daughter you never told me about? That you've been sleeping with my aunt? That you were going to steal my mother's house? Which part needs explaining, Brad?" He had no answer. For the first time since I'd known him, Brad Morrison had nothing to say. The police arrived minutes later, called by one of the guests. I handed them everything. The flash drive, the documents, James Torres's full report. Brad was arrested for fraud and conspiracy to commit theft. Susan wasn't arrested that night, but the restraining order I filed Monday morning kept her away from us. The aftermath was brutal. Claire spent 3 days in bed, crying, processing the betrayal. Tyler didn't understand why Brad was gone, why Aunt Susan couldn't visit anymore. He cried for his almost dad, and it shattered my heart. But slowly, we began to heal. Claire started therapy. She threw herself into her work and spent more time with Tyler. Amanda was there for her every step of the way. Marcus came to see me a week after the party. He was devastated about his mother, horrified by what she'd done. We cried together. He cut off contact with Susan, unable to forgive her. And then, one afternoon about 6 weeks later, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find a teenage girl with auburn hair and hazel eyes. Susan's coloring, Brad's eyes. She was holding a backpack and looked terrified. "Are you Margaret Henderson?" she asked quietly. "Yes. I'm Kaylee Morrison. I know you probably hate me, and I understand if you don't want anything to do with me, but I didn't know where else to go. My mom, Susan, she's gone. Just disappeared. Left a note saying she couldn't face everyone. And my dad, Brad, he's in jail. I don't have anyone else." My heart cracked open. This child, this innocent girl, was a victim just like Claire, just like all of us. "Come in," I said, stepping aside. Kaylee hesitated. "You're sure?" "You're not your parents, sweetheart. Come in." Claire came down the stairs and froze when she saw Kaylee. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Then Claire said, "You look like Tyler when he was younger." Kaylee's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry. For everything. I didn't know what they were doing. I swear I didn't know." Claire walked down the rest of the stairs and, to my surprise, pulled Kaylee into a hug. "I believe you," she said quietly. "That was 8 months ago. Kaylee lives with us now. She and Tyler are like siblings. She calls me Aunt Margaret, And she's in therapy working through the trauma of learning her entire life was built on lies and manipulation. Brad is serving 3 to 5 years for fraud. He's facing additional charges in 2 other states. Susan never came back. The last I heard, she'd fled to Mexico to escape her creditors. Claire is healing. She's dating again, slowly, carefully, with much better boundaries and instincts. She says the experience, as painful as it was, taught her what real love isn't. And she's learning what it is. As for me, I'm 67 now. I still live in the house Robert and I built our life in. But it's fuller now, with Claire, Tyler, and Kaylee. We're a family, wounded but intact, learning to trust again. I look back on that morning of the engagement party, when I found that burner phone, and I think about the choice I had to make. I could have stayed silent, let Claire marry Brad, let them steal our home. I could have confronted them privately and let them talk their way out of it. But I chose the truth. Painful, public, devastating truth. Because the truth, no matter how cruel, is the only foundation on which we can rebuild our lives. The lies might have been easier in the moment, but they would have destroyed us completely. And now, watching Tyler and Kaylee do homework together at the kitchen table, seeing Claire laugh again, I know I made the right choice. The truth set us free, and though it hurt like hell getting there, we're finally building something real. Something honest, something that will last.